The sound of zippers and rustling fabric pulled me from sleep at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning. Not exactly the gentle wake-up call most husbands expect after 15 years of marriage. I rolled over to find my wife Celia standing at our dresser, methodically folding summer clothes into her expensive leather suitcase, the one we'd bought for our honeymoon to Italy. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Are we going somewhere?" I asked, propping myself up on one elbow. Celia turned with that practiced smile she reserved for difficult clients at her investment firm. "We? Don't make me laugh, Evan. My friend invited me to Miami for a long weekend. You know, girl time." I knew that smile. I'd seen it countless times when she was about to close a deal or manipulate someone into seeing things her way. What I didn't know was that I'd become the target. "Which friend?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew the answer would be a lie. "Brent Halverson. You remember him from the country club barbecue last month?" Brent Halverson. Real estate developer, married to Alex, and about as trustworthy as a used car salesman with a gambling problem. I remembered him all right, the way he'd cornered Celia by the pool, his hand lingering on her lower back while they laughed at jokes that weren't particularly funny. "Since when is Brent a girl?" I asked, sitting up fully now. Celia's laugh was forced, brittle. "Don't be ridiculous. It's a group thing. Several couples from the club." Another lie. I could tell because she was folding her black lingerie, the set I'd bought her for our anniversary, into the suitcase with particular care. Women don't pack Victoria's Secret for group trips with married friends. "What about Alex?" I pressed. "Is she going too?" "Of course she is." Celia's voice carried just a hint of irritation now. "Really, Evan, you're being paranoid." I watched her pack for another few minutes, noting the careful selection of clothes, the new bikini she'd bought last week, the expensive perfume I'd never seen before. My wife was many things, ambitious, calculating, image-obsessed, but she wasn't a good liar, at least not to someone who'd been studying her tells for 15 years. After she left for the airport in an Uber that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget, I did what any suspicious husband would do in the digital age. I grabbed my phone and sent a text to Alex Halverson. "Hey Alex, did you know Brent is going to Miami with Celia? Looking forward to seeing you both there." The response came back within minutes. "What? Brent's been missing since yesterday. Said he had business meetings. He's in Miami with your wife?" I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar cold sensation in my chest, the same one I'd felt during my military days when an operation was about to go sideways. The difference was, back then I had protocols to follow. Now I was flying solo. Alex's next message appeared before I could respond. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at Coastal Coffee in an hour?" I agreed, but my mind was already racing ahead to darker possibilities. Celia wasn't just having an affair. She was having an affair with a man whose wife thought he was on a business trip. That level of deception required planning, coordination, and a complete disregard for the collateral damage they'd cause. As I got dressed, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. 44 years old, graying at the temples, crow's feet from too many years squinting at technical drawings in my industrial design work. When had I become the kind of man a woman would cheat on? The answer, I realized, was probably the same day I'd become the kind of man who would let her get away with it. But not this time. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Coastal Coffee was one of those aggressively quaint New England establishments that charged $8 for what amounted to regular coffee with a pretentious name. I found Alex Halverson sitting in a corner booth, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a cup of something that probably had more syllables than nutrients. Alex was everything Celia aspired to be: old money, elegant, effortlessly sophisticated, and cold as a January morning in Maine. She looked up as I approached, her blue eyes sharp with the kind of focused anger that comes from years of practice. "Sit down, Evan," she said without preamble. "We have a problem." "We do?" "Unless you're comfortable with your wife screwing my husband in Miami while we sit here like idiots. Yes, we have a problem." I had to admire her directness. No tears, no dramatics, just cold, hard assessment of the situation. It reminded me why I'd always liked Alex, even when I found her intimidating. "What do you want to do about it?" I asked. "I want to catch them. I want evidence, and then I want to destroy them both." The venom in her voice was impressive, but I'd learned long ago that the best revenge required patience and planning. "What kind of evidence are we talking about?" Alex pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. Brent's credit card transactions. He booked 2 rooms at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach yesterday morning. Charged it to his business account, the idiot. 2 rooms? For appearances, I assume, though I doubt they're using both. I studied the receipt. Brent had indeed booked 2 ocean view suites for 4 nights. The total cost was more than I made in a month, which raised an interesting question about where he was getting that kind of money. His real estate business had been struggling lately. Everyone in town knew that. There's more, Alex continued. I've been tracking his location through our shared Apple account. He's been at the hotel pool for the last 3 hours. You can do that? Evan, I've been married to a cheating bastard for 12 years. I learned to use technology for surveillance purposes long ago. I felt a stab of sympathy for her, followed immediately by a surge of anger at my own naivety. How long had Celia been planning this? How many other business trips and girls' weekends had actually been rendezvous with Brent? So what's the plan? I asked. Alex's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. We're going to Miami. Tonight. Both of us? Both of us. I've already booked flights. We're going to document everything, and then we're going to make sure the whole town knows exactly what kind of people they really are. I should have said no. Should have suggested marriage counseling or mediation or any of the civilized approaches that reasonable adults use to handle marital problems. Instead, I found myself nodding. What about work? I called in sick for both of us, Alex said. Told your boss you had food poisoning. Told mine I had a family emergency. You called my boss? I can be very convincing when I need to be. That was an understatement. Alex Halverson could probably convince the Pope to convert to Buddhism if she put her mind to it. We spent the next hour planning our approach. Alex had already researched the hotel layout, identified the best vantage points for surveillance, and even booked us a room on the same floor as Brent and Celia. Her thoroughness was both impressive and slightly terrifying. One more thing, she said as we prepared to leave. When we catch them, let me do the talking. I have experience with public humiliation. Experience? Brent's not my first cheating husband, just my last. The flight to Miami gave me time to think about what we were doing and whether it was the right approach. Part of me wanted to confront Celia privately, give her a chance to explain or apologize. But a larger part, the part that had been shaped by years of military training and industrial problem-solving, knew that some situations required decisive action. Celia had made her choice when she packed that suitcase. Now, I was making mine. We landed at Miami International at 8 p.m. and took a cab directly to the Fontainebleau. The hotel was exactly the kind of ostentatious display of wealth that would appeal to someone like Brent. All marble and gold fixtures, and beautiful people spending money they probably didn't have. Alex checked us into our surveillance room with the efficiency of a seasoned operative. Within 30 minutes, we had visual confirmation of our targets. They were at the pool bar, sharing what appeared to be their 3rd or 4th round of expensive cocktails. Celia was wearing the new bikini I'd seen her pack, along with a sheer cover-up that left little to the imagination. Brent had his arm around her waist, his fingers tracing patterns on her hip, with the casual intimacy of an established couple. Get the camera ready, Alex whispered. I raised my phone and started recording just as Brent leaned in to kiss my wife. It wasn't a friendly peck or an accidental moment of weakness. It was deep, passionate, and completely unambiguous. Celia responded by running her fingers through his hair and pressing closer against him. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her look at me the way she was looking at him. That's enough, Alex said quietly. We have what we need. But I kept recording as they finished their drinks and walked hand in hand toward the hotel elevators. I recorded them kissing again while waiting for the elevator. I recorded them getting into the elevator together, Brent's hand sliding down to squeeze Celia's ass as the doors closed. Evan. Alex's voice was gentle but firm. That's enough. I lowered the phone, surprised to find that my hands were shaking. Not from anger. I'd moved past anger somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. This was something colder, more focused. This was the feeling I'd had right before executing a particularly complex military operation. What now? I asked. Alex's smile was predatory. Now we go home and plan their destruction. The flight back to Boston gave us 6 hours to plan our revenge. Alex approached it with the methodical precision of a corporate takeover, while I found myself thinking like the military strategist I used to be. The combination was proving to be devastatingly effective. First rule, Alex said as we reviewed the photos and videos on my phone, is that we control the narrative. They don't get to spin this as a misunderstanding or a moment of weakness. This was premeditated adultery, and everyone needs to know it. How do we prove premeditation? Brent booked those hotel rooms 3 weeks ago. I checked his credit card history. This wasn't spontaneous, it was planned. I studied the timeline Alex had constructed on her tablet. Hotel reservations, restaurant bookings, even a couple's massage appointment at the hotel spa. They'd planned a romantic getaway with the same attention to detail most people reserved for their actual honeymoons. "What about the financial angle?" I asked. "Brent's business is struggling, but he just dropped $5,000 on a weekend in Miami." Alex's eyes lit up with predatory interest. "That's an excellent point. Where do you think he got the money?" "Celia manages investment portfolios for some of the biggest clients in New England. She has access to information that could be very valuable to someone in real estate development." "Insider trading?" "Or something close to it. At minimum, she could tip him off about which areas are going to see development, which properties are undervalued, which zoning changes are coming down the pipeline." Alex made notes on her tablet. "So we're not just looking at adultery. We're potentially looking at securities fraud." "That's a federal crime." "Yes, it is." We spent the rest of the flight documenting everything we knew and everything we suspected. By the time we landed in Boston, we had a comprehensive dossier on Brent and Celia's relationship, complete with financial records, travel documentation, and enough photographic evidence to end both their careers. The question was how to deploy it for maximum impact. I dropped Alex off at her house in the affluent Beacon Hill neighborhood and drove home to our colonial in the suburbs. The house felt different somehow, smaller, shabbier, tainted by the knowledge of what Celia had done. I walked through the rooms we'd shared for 15 years, seeing them now through the lens of her betrayal. The kitchen where she'd kissed me goodbye before leaving for her girls' weekend. The living room where we'd hosted dinner parties for the same social circle that would soon be gossiping about our divorce. The bedroom where we'd made love just 2 weeks ago, her performance now revealed as exactly that. A performance. I was examining the contents of her home office when I found the first piece of direct evidence. Hidden in a folder marked Personal Finance were printed emails between Celia and Brent dating back 6 months. They weren't explicitly romantic, but they revealed a level of communication and coordination that went far beyond casual friendship. More damning were the attachments: confidential client reports from Celia's firm, market analysis documents marked internal use only, and investment recommendations that corresponded exactly with Brent's recent property acquisitions. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was committing securities fraud to finance her affair. I photographed everything and sent copies to Alex, then returned the documents to their hiding place. If Celia was going to play games, she needed to believe she was winning right up until the moment I destroyed her. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Mickey's Marina, a weathered establishment on the outskirts of town where I kept my boat and where the local gossip flowed as freely as the beer. Mickey Torino was a 70-year-old ex-con who knew everyone's business and had no qualms about sharing it with anyone who bought him a drink. "Evan," Mickey called out as I approached the dock, "how's that beautiful wife of yours? Haven't seen her around lately." "She's in Miami," I said. "Girls' weekend." Mickey's weathered face creased into a knowing grin. "Miami, huh? Expensive taste for a girls' weekend. Must be doing well at that fancy job of hers." "You could say that." I bought Mickey a beer and listened as he regaled me with the latest town scandals. Apparently, Brent Halverson's construction company was behind on payments to several local suppliers. His marriage to Alex was rumored to be on the rocks, and there were whispers about some shady financial dealings involving out-of-state investors. "Between you and me," Mickey said, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "I heard Brent's been getting inside information about development projects. Someone's feeding him details about zoning changes, environmental impact studies, that kind of thing." "Any idea who?" Mickey shrugged. "Someone with access to high-level financial information, someone who knows which way the wind's blowing before the weather changes, if you know what I mean." I knew exactly what he meant. That afternoon, I met Alex at a discreet restaurant outside of town to finalize our strategy. She'd spent the morning consulting with her divorce attorney and had some interesting news. "Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state," she said, "but adultery can still affect property division and alimony, especially if we can prove the affair involved financial impropriety." "What kind of proof do we need?" "More than we have now. The emails are suggestive, but not conclusive. We need something that directly links their affair to financial fraud." "I might have an idea about that." I explained my conversation with Mickey and the rumors about Brent's inside information. Alex listened with the focused intensity of a predator tracking wounded prey. "So, we need to catch them in the act of exchanging information," she said, "or create a situation where they have to." Alex raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a news article I'd bookmarked earlier. "The City Planning Commission is meeting next week to discuss a major development project on the waterfront. It's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars to whoever gets the inside track on the land acquisitions. And Celia would have advanced knowledge of the environmental impact studies and financial projections." "Exactly. If we can create a situation where Brent needs that information urgently and Celia provides it, we'll have them both on securities fraud. Alex's smile was coldly satisfied. I like it. But how do we create that urgency? Leave that to me. Celia returned from Miami on Thursday evening with a tan, a guilty conscience, and a suitcase full of lies. I was waiting in the kitchen when she walked through the door, a glass of wine in my hand and a smile on my face that I'd practiced in the mirror for an hour. Welcome home, sweetheart, I said, standing to kiss her cheek. How was the girls' weekend? Oh, you know. She set down her suitcase and avoided my eyes. Relaxing. We spent most of the time by the pool. That's nice. Which hotel did you stay at? The Marriott, she said without hesitation. Another lie. Nothing fancy, just somewhere clean and comfortable. I nodded and poured her a glass of wine. I missed you. The house felt empty without you. Celia's smile was strained, but she accepted the wine and settled into her usual chair at the kitchen island. Did you do anything interesting while I was gone? Just worked on some design projects. Oh, and I ran into Alex Halverson at the grocery store. She mentioned that Brent was out of town on business. Funny coincidence that you were both traveling at the same time. I watched Celia's face carefully as I said this. A slight tightening around her eyes, a barely perceptible pause before she responded. She was good, but not good enough. Small world, she said lightly. How is Alex? I haven't talked to her in ages. She seemed stressed. Something about Brent's business having financial problems. This got a stronger reaction. Celia's grip on her wine glass tightened, and she looked away toward the window. That's unfortunate. The real estate market has been challenging lately. I sipped my wine and waited. Sometimes the most effective interrogation technique was simply allowing people to fill uncomfortable silences. I should probably give her a call, Celia said after a moment. See if there's anything I can do to help. That's thoughtful of you. I'm sure she'd appreciate having someone to talk to about financial matters. Celia nodded absently, already lost in thought. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, calculating risks and opportunities. She was wondering how much Alex knew, how much I knew, and whether her affair was in danger of exposure. What she didn't know was that her affair was the least of her problems. Over the next few days, I played the role of the oblivious husband with Academy Award-worthy performance. I asked about her weekend, complimented her tan, and even suggested we plan our own romantic getaway soon, all while secretly documenting her communications with Brent and feeding information to Alex about their ongoing relationship. The break I was waiting for came on Monday morning. Celia received a phone call that sent her into a panic, not the kind of controlled stress she usually displayed at work, but genuine fear. She took the call in her office with the door closed, but our house had thin walls and I had good hearing. What do you mean they moved up the timeline? I heard her say. That's not what we discussed. I don't care what your investors want, Brent. This is dangerous. No, I can't just walk into my boss's office and ask for confidential reports, because it's called securities fraud, you idiot. I moved closer to the office door, my phone already recording. Fine. Celia continued, her voice tight with stress. I'll see what I can do. But if this goes wrong, we're both finished. No, don't come to the house. Meet me at the usual place tonight at 8. The usual place. That was interesting. Apparently their relationship had been going on long enough to establish regular meeting spots. I made a mental note to follow her that evening. After Celia left for work, I called Alex to update her on the situation. It sounds like Brent's investors are pressuring him to move quickly on something, I told her. And whatever it is requires inside information from Celia's firm. The waterfront development project, Alex said immediately. It has to be. The planning commission meeting was moved up to tomorrow night, and the environmental impact study is supposed to be released today. How do you know all this? Because I sit on the planning commission, Evan. Brent's been trying to get me to share information for months, but I've been refusing. Now I know why he's been so persistent. This was an unexpected development, but potentially a very useful one. What kind of information has he been asking for? Details about the environmental study, the financial projections, which properties are being targeted for acquisition. Everything he'd need to make strategic investments before the information becomes public. And if someone were to provide him with that information, it would be textbook securities fraud, probably worth 5 to 10 years in federal prison. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. Alex, I think it's time we gave Brent exactly what he's been asking for. What do you mean? I mean, we're going to feed him false information and watch him act on it. When he makes investments based on fraudulent insider tips, we'll have everything we need to destroy both of them. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Evan, that's actually brilliant, and completely legal since we'd be preventing actual securities fraud rather than committing it. Exactly. Can you create fake documents that look authentic? I can do better than that. I can create documents that contain just enough real information to seem credible, but with key details that will lead Brent to make disastrous investment decisions. And when Celia passes those documents to Brent, we'll have documented proof of their conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Plus, Brent will lose whatever money he invests based on the false information. It was a perfect trap. Celia and Brent would incriminate themselves while simultaneously destroying their own financial futures. The beauty of it was that they'd do it all voluntarily, driven by their own greed and arrogance. There's just one problem, Alex said. How do we get the fake documents to Celia in a way that seems natural? I thought about this for a moment, then smiled. Leave that to me. I have an idea that will make her think she's stealing the information herself. That evening, I followed Celia to her meeting with Brent. The usual place turned out to be a dive bar called Murphy's Tavern on the outskirts of town, the kind of establishment where married people went when they didn't want to be seen by anyone they knew. I parked across the street and watched through the window as they huddled together in a corner booth, their conversation intense and urgent. Even from a distance, I could see the stress in their body language. Brent was gesticulating wildly, his face red with what looked like anger or panic. Celia kept checking her phone and glancing toward the door, clearly nervous about being seen. Whatever they were discussing, it wasn't going well. After about an hour, they left separately. Celia drove straight home, while Brent headed in the direction of his office. I followed Celia, arriving just a few minutes behind her. "How was book club?" I asked as she walked through the front door. "Book club?" She looked confused for a moment, then caught herself. "Oh, right, it was fine. We discussed that new thriller everyone's been talking about." Another lie. Celia hadn't been to book club in 6 months, and I'd never seen her read a thriller in her life. But I nodded and smiled as if I believed her. "I'm exhausted," she said, heading for the stairs. "I think I'll take a bath and go to bed early." "Good idea. You've seemed stressed lately." She paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked back at me. For a moment, I thought she might confess everything. Tell me about Brent, about the affair, about whatever illegal scheme they were planning. Instead, she just nodded. "Work has been demanding lately. Big projects coming up." "Anything I can help with?" "No, it's just financial stuff. Nothing you'd find interesting." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard the bathroom door close and the water start running. While she was occupied, I went to her office and planted the fake documents Alex had prepared. They were masterful forgeries, official-looking reports with authentic letterheads and convincing technical language, but containing information that would lead any investor to make catastrophically bad decisions. I placed them in a folder marked Confidential Environmental Impact Study and left it prominently displayed on Celia's desk, as if someone had forgotten to put it away properly. If she was looking for inside information to pass to Brent, she wouldn't be able to resist taking a look. The next morning, I made a point of leaving for work early, giving Celia plenty of opportunity to discover the documents. I parked down the street and watched through binoculars as she found the folder, photographed its contents with her phone, and then carefully returned it to its original position. Hook, line, and sinker. I called Alex as soon as I was sure Celia had taken the bait. She found the documents, photographed everything, and put them back exactly where she found them. Perfect. Now we wait for her to pass the information to Brent. How long do you think that will take? Based on what I observed last night, not long. They're both desperate. Alex was right. That afternoon, I intercepted a text message from Celia to Brent. "Got what you need? Same place, 6 p.m. This time, I wasn't content to watch from across the street. I arrived at Murphy's Tavern early and took a table near their usual booth, disguising myself with a baseball cap and reading a newspaper like some kind of discount private investigator. It was ridiculous, but it worked. Celia arrived first, looking around nervously before settling into the corner booth. Brent showed up 10 minutes later, sliding into the seat across from her with the casual confidence of a man who thought he was about to solve all his problems. "Tell me you have good news," I heard him say. Celia pulled out her phone and showed him the photographs she'd taken. "Environmental impact study for the waterfront development. The information you've been waiting for." Brent leaned forward eagerly, studying the images on her phone. "This is perfect. According to this, the contamination levels are much lower than expected. Property values are going to skyrocket once this becomes public." What Brent didn't know was that the fake documents Alex had created showed exactly the opposite of reality. The actual environmental study had revealed serious contamination issues that would make development extremely expensive and time-consuming. Anyone who invested based on the false information would lose their shirt. "How much are you planning to invest?" Celia asked. "Everything I can get my hands on. I've already secured a $2 million loan using my business as collateral. With this information, I can triple that investment in 6 months." Celia looked uncomfortable. "Brent, are you sure about this? If something goes wrong?" "Nothing's going to go wrong. You've given me inside information that won't be public for another month. By the time everyone else knows about the low contamination levels, I'll have already bought up half the waterfront." I had to admire Brent's confidence, even as I recorded every word of his confession to securities fraud. He was about to bet his entire business on information that would lead him straight into bankruptcy. "What about us?" Celia asked quietly. "When do we tell our spouses?" "After the investment pays off. Once I have enough money to make the divorce settlement painless, we can be together openly." "And if Evan suspects something?" Brent reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "He doesn't suspect anything. Your husband's a nice guy, but he's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. By the time he figures out what's happening, we'll be living in a penthouse condo overlooking Miami Beach." I felt my jaw clench at the casual dismissal, but I forced myself to remain calm. Let them underestimate me. It would make their downfall that much more satisfying. They finished their drinks and left separately, just as they had the night before. I waited 5 minutes, then followed Brent to his office, where I watched him make phone calls to investors and real estate agents, setting up the purchases that would destroy him. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The next morning, I called Alex to confirm that Brent had taken the bait. "He's already made offers on 3 waterfront properties," she reported. "Used his business as collateral for loans totaling $2.8 million. When the real environmental study is released next week, those properties will be worth about half what he paid for them." "And we have documented proof that Celia provided him with the false information?" "Audio recordings, photographs, and a paper trail that leads directly back to both of them. It's enough to end their careers and send them both to prison." "What about their personal relationship?" Alex's laugh was cold and sharp. "Oh, that's going to end much more spectacularly than their careers." "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's time for the final confrontation. Are you ready to watch your wife's world collapse?" I thought about Celia's lies, her betrayal, and her casual assumption that I was too stupid to figure out what she was doing. I thought about Brent's arrogance and his plan to steal my wife while destroying his own marriage. "I'm ready." The annual Harbor Days Festival was the social event of the year in our small coastal town. Everyone attended: families, couples, business owners, local politicians. It was the perfect venue for what Alex had planned. "Public humiliation is an art form," she explained as we reviewed the final details of our plan. "You can't just expose someone's secrets and expect maximum impact. You have to choose the right moment, the right audience, and the right method of delivery." Alex had arranged for the festival's main stage to be equipped with a large video screen, ostensibly for displaying community announcements and sponsor advertisements. What the festival organizers didn't know was that Alex had also arranged for the screen to be connected to her laptop, giving her complete control over what appeared on it. "The beauty of this approach," she continued, "is that we're not breaking any laws. Everything we're going to show is true, documented, and obtained legally. We're simply making public information that Celia and Brent tried to keep secret." I had to admire Alex's thoroughness. Over the past week, she'd compiled a comprehensive presentation that told the complete story of Celia and Brent's affair, including the Miami photographs, audio recordings of their conversations, and documentation of their securities fraud conspiracy. It was devastating, comprehensive, and absolutely undeniable. "What happens after we expose them?" I asked. "Celia loses her job, her professional reputation, and probably faces federal charges. Brent loses his business, his investments, and his freedom. Their affair ends in mutual recrimination and legal bills. And us?" Alex smiled. "We get our lives back." The festival began at noon on a perfect Saturday in late September. The weather was crisp and clear, the kind of day that made living in New England feel like a privilege rather than an endurance test. Families strolled between booths selling local crafts and overpriced food, while children ran around with balloons and cotton candy. I spotted Celia near the main stage, chatting with some of her work colleagues and playing the role of the devoted wife. She'd even worn the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, a touch that struck me as particularly cruel given the circumstances. Brent was holding court near the beer tent, surrounded by local business owners and regaling them with stories of his latest real estate ventures. He looked confident and relaxed, completely unaware that his world was about to implode. At exactly 3 o'clock, Alex took the stage under the pretense of making a community announcement. She looked elegant and composed in a navy blue dress that complemented her ice-cold demeanor. "Good afternoon, everyone," she said into the microphone. "I hope you're all enjoying Harbor Days." Before we continue with today's festivities, I'd like to share some information that I think you'll find illuminating. The crowd quieted, expecting the usual boring announcements about parking regulations or volunteer opportunities. Instead, the video screen behind Alex lit up with a photograph of Celia and Brent kissing at the Miami hotel pool. The reaction was immediate and electric. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people recognized the two figures in the image. I watched Celia's face drain of color as she realized what was happening. Across the crowd, Brent was pushing through people, trying to reach the stage. "This photograph was taken last week at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach," Alex continued calmly. "It shows my husband Brent Halverson and Celia Mercer enjoying what they told their spouses was a business trip and girls' weekend, respectively." More photographs appeared on the screen. Celia and Brent holding hands, sharing intimate dinners, entering the hotel elevator together. Each image was more damning than the last, and the crowd's murmur grew louder with each revelation. But adultery is just the beginning of this story," Alex said. "What you're about to see is evidence of securities fraud, conspiracy, and the systematic betrayal of professional ethics." The screen switched to audio recordings of Celia and Brent's conversations at Murphy's Tavern. Their voices were crystal clear as they discussed insider information, illegal investments, and their plans to leave their spouses once the money came through. I watched Celia push through the crowd, her face a mask of panic and humiliation. She was trying to reach the stage, probably hoping to somehow stop the presentation or offer an explanation. But Alex had positioned security guards around the perimeter, and Celia found herself trapped in the crowd of her friends, neighbors, and colleagues as they listened to her confess to federal crimes. "The environmental impact study that Brent Halverson used to make his recent investments was falsified," Alex announced. "The real study, which will be released on Monday, shows contamination levels that make waterfront development economically unfeasible. Mr. Halverson has invested $2.8 million based on fraudulent information provided by his lover, and he will lose everything." Brent had finally reached the front of the crowd and was shouting at Alex to stop, but his protests were drowned out by the gasps and conversations of the audience. Everyone was recording the presentation on their phones, ensuring that the story would spread far beyond the festival grounds. "I want everyone here to understand the full scope of what these two people have done," Alex continued. "They didn't just betray their spouses. They betrayed this entire community. Celia Mercer used her position at a respected financial firm to commit securities fraud. Brent Halverson used insider information to gain unfair advantage over honest investors. They are criminals, and they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." The presentation concluded with a final slide showing FBI contact information and a statement that all evidence had been turned over to federal authorities. Alex stepped away from the microphone and walked calmly off the stage, leaving Celia and Brent to face the crowd of their former friends and neighbors. I watched from the edge of the crowd as Celia tried desperately to explain herself to anyone who would listen. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the community's reaction was swift and brutal. People turned away from her, whispered among themselves, and began to leave her standing alone in the middle of the festival grounds. Brent fared even worse. Several of his business associates confronted him directly, demanding explanations and threatening lawsuits. His face was red with anger and embarrassment as he realized that his reputation and livelihood had been destroyed in the span of 15 minutes. I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned to find Alex standing beside me, a satisfied smile on her face. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about the question for a moment, watching as Celia finally gave up trying to salvage the situation and walked toward the parking lot, her head down and her shoulders shaking with what might have been tears or rage. "Free," I said finally. "I feel free." Alex nodded. "Good, because this is just the beginning. The FBI investigation will take months, the divorce proceedings will be complicated, and the social fallout will last for years. But we've won the war." She was right. Celia and Brent had lost everything that mattered to them: their reputations, their careers, their financial security, and their standing in the community. Their affair, which had seemed so exciting and romantic in Miami, had been revealed as the sordid, criminal conspiracy it really was. As I walked back to my car, I passed Brent arguing frantically on his phone with what sounded like his lawyer. His face was pale and sweaty, and his voice carried the desperate edge of a man who had just realized the full extent of his mistakes. "What do you mean, federal charges?" I heard him say. "It was just inside information. No, I don't understand the difference. How long could I go to prison?" I didn't wait for an answer. After 15 years with a wife who betrayed me, I finally had my life back. The next morning, the house felt lighter, even though her things were still there. Then Alex called and told me to turn on the news. Celia had been fired, her office was raided, and she was under federal investigation for securities fraud. Brent's business was collapsing too. Loans called in, investors panicking, everything falling apart. Celia even begged Alex to make it go away, but Alex shut her down. Later at the marina, my friend Mickey saw the relief on my face, and I admitted the truth. Some people earn their consequences. In the following weeks, the scandal exploded. Celia and Brent were charged, their affair turned toxic, and both lost everything. 6 months later, my divorce was final. Celia took a plea and went to prison. Brent got prison too. We raised a glass to justice and second chances, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. She thought she was going on a trip. She was, to federal prison. I was going home.